What is happening, everyone? Welcome back to episode 33 of Manny's Food Channel. It's your boy Manny, and just before we get started today, I just want to wish all of you a happy new year, and I hope that everyone had a very safe and enjoyable New Year's celebration. For today's episode, we're going to be making a world-renowned dish. There is many different variations as to how to make this dish, but today we're going to be making the Korean Bibimbap. So in this recipe here, you can add any kind of vegetables or meat that you'd like to it, but it's saucy, it's creamy, it's spicy, it's sweet, it's salty, it's delicious. So without further ado, it's time to get cooking. So to start off this bibimbap recipe, we're going to do the marinade first for the beef. In one bowl here, I'm going to pour some water, half the amount of soy sauce, some fresh pressed apple juice. Now if you would rather buy apple juice from the store, you can certainly do that as well. I'm going to add a little bit of sesame oil, some honey in there just to add a touch of sweetness, and then finally I'm going to grate a couple of garlic cloves. So now give this a quick mix, whisk in and incorporate all of the ingredients so that way we can set up the beef for when we add it to this marinade. And once you whisk it and incorporate all the ingredients, next up you can add your beef. Now this beef here, I just got a rough cut from the supermarket. If you are getting a full slice of beef, make sure you cut it against the grain so that way it holds its shape and tenderizes really nicely. You don't have to buy expensive beef because the marinade is going to help tenderize the texture of the meat. So when you add your beef to the marinade, make sure you keep it in there for at least an hour. I would do it for minimum a day for myself personally because you want to really infuse all the flavor from this marinade. And once you finish this marinade here and add in the beef, we're going to cover it up, set it in the fridge, and then we're going to move on to creating a very quick pickling liquid for the vegetables that we're going to pickle. Now the recipe to making a very quick and easy pickling liquid is very simple. I'm only using 3 ingredients. First I'm going to add some water, then I'm going to add half the amount of vinegar, and then finally I'm going to toss in the sugar. All I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring this up to a quick boil so that way I can dissolve the sugar that's in there and then let it cool off a little bit before we add it into our vegetables. Now if you want to go more fancy, more complicated, you can certainly add some pickling seasoning or any other seasoning you feel that you want to enhance your pickling liquid. But because we're trying to do a very quick and easy, simple to execute recipe to create this bibimbap, this here is only 3 ingredients and it tastes extremely delicious. So now I'm going to bring this up to a boil, and while we're waiting for this to simmer down, we're going to prepare the vegetables that we're going to add into the pickling liquid. Now the 2 vegetables that I'm going to use to pickle are the mood radish. I'm only going to use half because one of them is going to be too much for me, and the other one's going to be carrot. Now if you want to go fancy, you can certainly cut them into small strips or julienne them, so that way it's got a really nice shape for when you're presenting the bibimbap. But if you're trying to work quick and easy and very simple, I would just use a box grater and use the biggest side of the grater, not the smallest one, and then I would just grate both through the mu radish as well as the carrots the same size. So I'm just going to quickly grate these off. Once you've decided on what kind of vegetables you want to pickle and you've grated them or you julienne them into the shape that you wanted them to be, now you're going to grab the jars that you're going to use and grab the vegetables and just put them in the jars so that way you're ready to go once your pickling liquid is ready. Now remember, when you're pickling vegetables, you want to pickle them. You don't want to cook them and pickle them. So once your pickling liquid, which mine is done here, is ready, you want to make sure it cools down completely before you add it in. You don't want to have soft, mushy kind of pickled veg. You still want it to hold its shape, its integrity, and have a bit of a crunch and texture to the pickled veg that you're trying to pickle. So make sure that your pickling veg, once it's complete, cools out completely before you add it in here. And then after that, I would put it in the fridge and pickle them for at least an hour, but it will stay in the fridge for at least 2 to 3 weeks. And the quicker you eat it, the fresher it will be, of course, but regardless, it'll still taste really good. Now, as you can see here, my jar is not big enough. I am not going to stuff it more. You want to leave a bit of room so that way the pickling liquid fully covers all the surfaces of the vegetable that you are pickling. So I'm going to stop here, grab another jar, toss in the rest of the veg in that jar, and then wait to toss in the pickling liquid. My pickling liquid has finally cooled down. I toss in an ice cube or two and put it in the freezer to kind of speed up that cooling process. And once your vegetables are complete, they're in your jars ready to go, you want to make sure that you fill above the point where you have your vegetables, because as your vegetables are absorbing the pickling liquid, you want to make sure that it's always, all the surfaces are covered with that pickling liquid. So now I'm going to toss this in and go a little bit above the point to cover all of the surfaces of my vegetables. Cover it up, leave it in the fridge until we're ready to eat it. And in the meantime, we're going to move on to making a very quick gochujang sauce that's going to go for our bibimbap. Now for this gochujang sauce, of course the main ingredient is gochujang. It's a Korean chili paste, and this paste here you can buy it at any grocery store or supermarket. I even get it in Superstore here, and it comes in a tub like this. You can buy a smaller one or a big one, but it's definitely worth having in your fridge all the time. So this chili paste is a little bit spicy and a touch on the sweet side as well. What I'm going to do first is add in some hot water, and I'm adding just enough to dissolve this paste so that way it's not too thick and doesn't create lumps when we're creating this sauce. So once you add in your hot water, just make sure you mix that in and incorporate it very well. Once you got that nice smooth velvety texture and it's not so solid anymore, you can add in the rest of your ingredients. Here I have some mirin. Next up, I'm going to add some rice vinegar, some soy sauce, and because soy sauce is salty naturally, we're not going to season it with any salt or pepper. And then finally, we're going to toss in some granulated sugar, and I'm going to grate 1 garlic clove. And that's it. That's how you make the gochujang sauce. The longer you let it sit, the more flavorful it will be, the more the ingredients will incorporate with one another and have this really intensified, delicious flavor. So now I'm going to give this a nice mix and set it in the fridge until you're ready to use it. And in the meantime, we'll move on to preparing the beef, the vegetables, and then once that's complete, we're ready to plate. So now we're going to quickly saute our veg. I'm probably going to saute each of them for about 3 to 4 minutes each on high heat to make sure that we saute it rather than boil it, add a bit of color and flavor to our veg. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to add a touch of oil in my pan, making sure that my oil is extremely hot before I add in the veg. Now I'm going to toss in the mushrooms first. Make sure that your pan is sizzling hot before you add it in. And I'm going to quickly saute this for around 3 to 4 minutes. I'm going to season it with a touch of salt and pepper. And you know what? If you have some extra gochujang sauce, certainly add that in there. But I would add it in at the very end once your mushrooms are cooked, just to kind of coat the mushrooms. Next, we're going to do the same thing. Add a touch of oil to the pan. Make sure you cover the whole surface of the pan. And next, we're going to add in the bean sprouts. And finally, add just a touch more oil. And I strained off the meat from the marinade, and it's been sitting for probably around half an hour or so, because I'm trying to keep it as dry as possible when I add it into my pan, so that way I add some color to the meat. And just be careful, it will splash back a little bit because of the liquid in the marinade from the beef. So just be careful when you're adding it in, and then we're going to cook it off for 3 to 4 minutes until it's cooked and has a really nice golden brown color. Alright, it's time to dig in and have a bite, and cheers to the New Year's. It's extremely delicious. There's a hint of that creaminess that comes from the egg yolk, that spiciness that comes from the gochujang paste. It's got a hint of sweetness, a little bit of saltiness, everything that you want in a dish combined all into one. So definitely have a try, let me know how it is, and I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy it, please give my video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and I wish everyone a very happy new year, and I look forward to seeing everybody next time.